Welcome to our review on health and disease. First thing that we're going to look at are three key definitions that we need to know for this topic. So the first one is when we talk about someone being healthy, what we're actually referring to is that they're free from disease. Second one, fitness. This is someone's ability to carry out an activity. And finally, disease is a condition that's caused by any part of the body that's not functioning properly for whatever reason. So when we're thinking about what could actually impact on someone's health status, there are a few different things we need to contemplate. So the first one is, what's their diet like? Because if you've got a poor diet in many ways, then there are a whole range of diseases that you could then suffer from. So one of the more common ones within our country particularly is obesity, as a result of obviously eating way too many calories for what we need. Another one, scurvy, hopefully a bit less common in your immediate area, which is a lack of vitamin C, and the exact reason why the Pirates of the Caribbean wouldn't have looked anything like Orlando Bloom and Johnny Depp. But let's face it, if their teeth have fallen out and they've got sores all over their faces, no one's going to go and see that film. Second one is stress, which has got links to things like heart disease and mental health problems. And the last one are a whole range of different life situations. So it could be where you live, because different areas have different access to sanitation. It could be your gender, because quite clearly boys are not going to get ovarian cancer and girls are not going to get testicular cancer. It could be linked into your financial status, which is going to impact on your diet. It's going to impact on the quality of your accommodation and so forth. It could also be your ethnic group, because we know that certain ethnicities are more prone to certain diseases. When it comes to trying to group these diseases, then what we actually do is split them into two main categories. The first one are the communicable diseases, and these are the ones that spread from one person to another. So these are the ones that when someone's coughing and spluttering in the corner, you want to stay away from them because you could get it. The non-communicable diseases, these are the ones that cannot spread from one person to another. So someone with a non-communicable disease, you could go and lick them if you really wanted to. Not that I advocate randomly licking people, but you would not catch that disease because it's not contagious. It's not going to spread from one person to another. What we're going to focus on first of all are the communicable diseases, so the ones that spread between organisms. Now, these are the diseases that are mainly caused by microorganisms. And if we've got a microorganism that causes a disease, then we refer to them as a pathogen. What we come on to here then is a table that gives you the 4 different types of pathogen and examples of diseases in both animals and plants. Because one thing we need to make sure that we're not doing is thinking that diseases are only prevalent in animals and humans. Plants get diseases too, so there's that nice equality amongst all organisms there. Now, what we've got 4 types of pathogen: fungi, bacteria, virus, and protozoans, or the protists. What I've done in the table is I've given you examples of animal diseases and plant diseases for each. As far as AQA specification is concerned, the only ones you've got to know about are the ones in red. The others are just there for the sake of having a complete table. So if we start with the fungi first of all, then the animal disease is athlete's foot, and the one you've got to know for AQA is the plant disease of rose black spot, which surprisingly occurs on roses. The next type of pathogen are bacteria. 2 examples for animals here, we've got salmonella and gonorrhea. And then the one for plants that you don't really need to know for AQA is one called crown gall disease. For viruses, in terms of our animals, then we've got measles and HIV. And for plants, tobacco mosaic virus. And you need to know all of those examples for the viruses. And then finally the protists, or the protozoa. Then for animals we have malaria, and just for the sake of completeness, in our plants you have one called coffee phloem necrosis. As always when talking about disease, one of the key things that I feel is vitally important are the gruesome pictures of disease. So here's a selection for you to feast your eyes on. Hopefully you're not having a snack at this point. So at the top we've got that lovely scene of athlete's foot between the toes. So between there we've got these lovely moist conditions that mean that the fungus loves to take root, and you can see the crusting and the flaking of the skin there. To the right we have Salmonella, so that's a nice big close-up of the actual bacterium there. At the bottom we've got the mosquito that's carrying malarial parasites, the protozoans. And in the bottom left, we've got the HIV virus particle. For our plants, perhaps a little bit less gruesome for you. In the bottom left, then that's our crown gall disease. So a gall is just a swelling, as you can see there. Top right, we have the rose black spot. You can see the black spots on the rose leaves. The bottom right, then we have the coffee phloem necrosis. And the top left is tobacco mosaic virus. The second classification of our diseases were non-communicable diseases, the ones that can't spread from one organism to another. So the common causes of the non-communicable diseases then, poor diet, as we've already discussed, obesity itself is a cause of many non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease and diabetes. We've also got genetic disorders like cystic fibrosis. And finally, things where the body processes aren't happening correctly. So this is in cases like cancer, where the body cells division isn't happening in the right manner. The last thing we really need to consider is that when we're looking at communicable and non-communicable diseases, they may have separate causes, but there are certain conditions that are linked together between them. So a good example of this is human papillomavirus, or HPV. So that's a virus, so therefore it's communicable. It can be spread from one person to another, but it's linked in to causing cervical cancer. So you can't catch cervical cancer from someone, but you can spread HPV. So we've got an example there of a communicable and non-communicable disease that's linked together. Another example is HIV, so human immunodeficiency virus, and that causes AIDS. Now, AIDS is going to weaken the immune system, and that means that you are more likely to suffer from infections of these opportunistic organisms, things like tuberculosis, which the lungs on the right are demonstrating in that lovely gruesome way for you. Now, tuberculosis is communicable, so it is going to spread from person to person, but generally what we're going to find is that those with AIDS will have much higher rates of TB than those without AIDS. So again, there's the link. Hopefully at the end of this video you can now talk about the two types of disease, communicable and non-communicable. You can recall examples of the different types of pathogen and the diseases they cause in both animals and plants, and you can also talk about how communicable and non-communicable diseases are sometimes linked.